What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Luttie's Look Back, episode 16, but episode 1 of the new year. Happy New Year. 2025 is already off to a start, a good and bad start from the sports world perspective. We've got another fun show full of basketball and a lot of basketball updates, and we'll briefly talk NFL at the end of the show. But now we'll start how we always do with my three big things from Arkansas's pretty ugly loss to Tennessee on Saturday. 76-52 was the final score. My first big thing: three-point shooting struggles. Only 6 for 29 from beyond the arc. And there's a lot of struggles in this game for the Razorbacks. Going on to my next point with the rebounding, three-point struggles was one of them. I mean, it wasn't a good game altogether for the Razorbacks, and that was one of the biggest things that stood out to me, especially down the stretch when they have a chance to really come back and, you know, maybe not win the game. But I kept saying, I was watching the game, I kept saying, just don't lose by 20 or more, and they lost by 20 or more, because I just felt like if they lost by like 15 on the road to number 1 Tennessee, it wouldn't look that bad, even though they didn't play great at times in this game. I just felt like if they didn't lose by 20 plus, everything would seem to be okay. And they lost by 20 plus. And I felt like a big reason because they were trying to come back in this game, and they would just jack up three-pointers. Boogie Flan being the first of them. I think he was 2 for 9 from beyond the arc. I have written down somewhere here. 2 for 9 from beyond the arc. That's not good. You don't want that out of your freshman star point guard. You also don't need him shooting 9 three-pointers. The team shouldn't be shooting 29 three-pointers. That's got to be the highest mark all season, because Arkansas isn't a three-point shooting team. Is that an issue? Possibly, but it's also a good thing looking down the line with games that they're going to play, because they don't have to rely on shooting themselves or shooting the other team out of the gym to win the game. That could be great for a lot of big games, and they could outshoot them to win. But in more games than not, Arkansas can beat you multiple ways. We didn't see that Arkansas team in this game because I think they're playing the number 1 team in the country, and we just didn't see an amazing Arkansas team play in this game. But three-point shooting was certainly one of the big struggles. Another one of the struggles, and that moves on to my second big thing, was the rebounding issues. The rebounding issues were apparent. And it was weird because I don't think it was a size thing. Arkansas has the size. They got Jonas Adu. They got Trevin Brazil. They got Big Z in there. He's 7'2". You don't tell me they have size. But they were just outmanned, out-physicaled by a better team. 51-29 was the rebounding numbers. And again, I think it's a physicality thing. And I don't think it's like Arkansas just sucks at rebounds and they're not good on the board, you know, and they just can't get rebounds and they aren't tall. Like, I don't think that's exactly what it is. I think they were out physical in this game on the boards. And I don't think it was just Tennessee was better in that regard, was better in a lot of regards. So I think that's the thing for this entire game, not just this point on the rebounding. Tennessee was the better team. They played good. Arkansas played okay. And Arkansas's okay compared to Tennessee's good made Tennessee a lot better than Arkansas in this game. I don't think Arkansas is a bad basketball team. I think you're going to see over the course of SEC play, Arkansas is a good team. If they can play great, they can beat a team like Tennessee if Tennessee plays okay. But in this game, Tennessee played pretty great. Arkansas played, I want to say bad, but they didn't play okay. Somewhere in between there. I know I just said they played okay like 30 seconds ago, but somewhere in between there. They didn't play amazing, and that's what obviously led to the loss. Rebounding, three-point struggles, and then my final big thing, the star players that Arkansas needed to play in this game to show up, they didn't do that. And they needed them to because it was a big game. In big games this season, they've sometimes shown up. Boogie Flan, when he playing near his hometown against Michigan, he showed up. He had 20-plus points, made a couple big clutch three-pointers. Adu Thiero played really good in that game. Those were big games where the big players showed up. Arkansas has a lot of really good star, big players that when they show up, this team is really good. Elite 8 good. That's the ceiling. I don't know if they can go beyond that. Of course, once you get to the Elite 8, you can probably make a run to the Final Four. But I think that's what their ceiling is. And it's because of their star players. Their star players play really good, they can make it that far. If their star players play like they did against Tennessee, against a really good Tennessee team, you get the outcome against a better team, and that's a 25-point loss or whatever it was. Their star players didn't come to play. Adu Thiero probably had his worst game as a Razorback. 1 or 2, and we'll hear from Coach Cal later on this. 6 points, 0 for 2 from beyond the arc. Granted, he isn't a three-point shooter. 3 for 7 from just field goal range. And then I think he was 0 for 4 free throws. Not a good free throw shooting night for the Razorbacks. And John L. Davis, another one of those star players. Number 1 or number 2 transfer out of the portal. Just hasn't shown up this year. I understand he's going through that injury, but I'm getting a little impatient. And I think Hog fans are too, because you have so much hype around this guy, and he hasn't shown up. 0 for 4 from beyond the arc, 0 for 4 inside the arc, 0 points. I think he had like 1 rebound. And he played like 25 minutes. The Stars didn't show up in this game. Here's Coach Cal and what he had to say after the game.
I can't remember the last time I had a team get beat by 30 rebounds. And so we got to do some soul searching, because this league, what they play like, everybody plays like. So we miss free throws, we miss threes, and we get out rebounded by 30. Aren't you like, how did you only get beat by 25? Could have been 50. But hats off to Tennessee. They're the number 1 team for a reason, and they did it to us. You know, we could play a bit bigger team with a do at 3, but like I said, he didn't play well today. He's probably had one of those this year. So in 14 games, he's had one other dud. He had it here. Couldn't make a free throw, and then he shoots an airball 3. That's not who he is. But give them credit. They made him play that way.
I mean, another thing in this game that Kyle didn't talk about a lot was the defensive issues. Those were a big struggle. I mean, when they put up, 76 points isn't a ton, but when they put up the numbers that they did and the percentage that they did, you have to question some of the defensive issues with the Razorbacks in this game. And again, I really want to see how so Tennessee's best player, Chaz Omier, he was the guy, if you watch the game, he was probably 5 for 9 from beyond the arc. I mean, he was draining 3-pointers. He's been that guy who's come in to fill the role of Dalton Connect, who was their really good player last season. He's been that guy now that's going to play, that Sakai Ziegler is going to get the ball to. So I'm interested to see if Omier is really as good as he played against Arkansas, or was just kind of he's been playing good in non-conference and he's going to kind of fizzle out. Because right now he's one of the best players in the conference, maybe in the country. But Arkansas couldn't defend him, and it was weird. They couldn't defend him and a couple other guys. And it's weird seeing that, because I think Arkansas is a good defensive team. They just didn't show it in this one. So tough loss for the Razorbacks. We'll move on. Not much more of a positive thing to move on to, but we'll go to the women's side of hoops for the Hogs. They had a rough week. 34-point loss to number 6 LSU on Thursday, then a 34-point loss to number 5 Texas yesterday. We'll briefly talk about both games, but in the LSU game, it was really no chance. I don't know how LSU was ranked below or not ahead of Texas. LSU seemed a lot better of a team than Texas when I watched the bits and pieces that I watched of both of those games. LSU was really good. Arkansas had no chance. Izzy Higginbottom, so good. So good. I was really interested and curious to see how she would do against SEC competition. She's only played a couple Power 4 teams. The Razorbacks have only played a couple Power 4 teams this season, and she's done well against them. She's done well against everybody. She's number 1 in the SEC in points per game, and she showed it against LSU. She was getting double-teamed, triple-teamed at times, 27 points against LSU. Then she turned around last night, 23 points. So really good performance out of her. The rest of her team, they don't know how to play. They know how to play basketball, but they struggle against 2 teams that are, granted, 2 of the best teams in the SEC right now. And I'll give them credit. Arkansas hung around with Texas in this game for longer than I thought they would. They were only down by a few points midway through the second quarter. Texas came out a little slow. Arkansas was playing decent, good enough to be close in this game. And then after that, Texas went on an 18-3 run to end the second quarter until Higginbottom hit the buzzer beater to go into halftime. And similar to the men's game, Razorbacks were also rebounded in the women's game here, rebounded 46-27. About that same 20-plus margin. That is pretty crazy, especially with 2 teams that are in the SEC. You might see that with an SEC team playing against a smaller non-conference opponent. But when you got 2 SEC teams, that's an issue when you have those rebounding issues. And more of an issue with the men's team, which is thing I should have talked about earlier. We're talking about the women's team now. It was not as much of an issue on this one. It was more their bigs trying not to get them in foul trouble. Their bigs in this game got in foul trouble. That's part of the reason they were out-rebounded this game. So those are some of my brief thoughts on this women's basketball team and the game they played past 2 games they played in the past 5 days. Here's Coach Mike Neighbors and his thoughts after the game against Texas.
We did hang in there and we fought. And I told our team, I said, I'm ready to take that team anywhere else in the SEC. We just played LSU and Texas back to back. I think 2 teams that have a chance to win the national championship. So I wish we would have had them maybe a little further apart. But I loved our fight. I love the things that we came back and did against the team that's really, really, they're just hard to function against. You know, they pick you up from the time you get to town and, you know, it's just pressing you and making it hard on you to make any passes and cuts. And, you know, I thought for a little bit to start, and then obviously at the end we ran out of gas. But the middle part of it, I thought our fight was really good. We've loved practice. Our kids have practiced their butts off. The games have been the hard part. We've had a hard time of bringing it to games. Felt like we had to bring it tonight. So I think this is going to help us when we face some people that, you know, aren't probably on that 1 or 2 seed line.
And Neighbors said it there, when they face teams that are on the 1 or 2 seed line, as far as the best teams in the SEC, the best teams in the country, like in LSU and Texas, maybe they have a chance. And that's what's next for the Razorback women. They face off against Auburn, I believe on Thursday. It is at Auburn. And Auburn only lost to LSU by 10 points yesterday. So I'm not too positive on the Razorback women's basketball team. You've probably watched this show long enough to figure that out. But we'll see what they can do. When Higginbottom plays good, the bigs don't get in trouble. They got the new player that's been playing good, Phoenix. I think that's her first name. I can't remember her last name. But they've got playmakers. They just got to put it together. And it sounds like they're putting it together in practice. They go out in the game, they can't do it. So we'll see what happens with them. Let's move on. Women's basketball talk. Go briefly over some men's basketball talk from our teams in the area. We'll start with Arkansas State. They fall 67-62 to James Madison. That snapped their 6-game winning streak. They were on a roll. They got the win. I think it was Thursday they got the win for the Red Wolves, but Saturday, they struggled and fell to the Dukes. And the Dukes were a really good team last year. If you remember, they only had a few losses on the year. They were like 30-5 going into March Madness. They upset a team in March Madness, and they went on to the round of 32, then lost to the Sweet 16. It's a different team now. JMU isn't as good as they were last year. And this is a game, still, they're not as good as they were last year, but they're still a really good team. Both of these teams could be playing for the Sun Belt Championship basketball tournament game whenever it gets that time in March. To see the next time these 2 teams play, I actually don't know. They might be playing again in the regular season, probably not. If they don't play again, I got a feeling they could play in the SBC tournament. And the winner of this game for the next time will go on to play in the NCAA basketball tournament. That might be Arkansas State's best shot. I don't know if they're going to be good enough to get in that large bid. But Arkansas State in this game, they led probably 85-90% of this game and then kind of crumbled down the stretch. It was the 6-minute mark of the second half. That's when JMU took the lead and kind of never looked back. Taryn Todd, was really good for them, 26 points for the Red Wolves. They've had a lot of really good players this year. Again, all of these teams are player teams. Like, they have really good players on each of these teams. It's about the team putting it together. That's the big thing for a lot of these teams that we're going to be talking about. For Taryn Todd and the Red Wolves, Taryn Todd's a good player. He's been relatively consistent. It's about getting those guys like a Joseph Pinion consistently going. We saw that when Pinion played with the Razorbacks. Had to do a couple really good games when he would just be unconscious from beyond the arc making 3-pointers, and then somewhere he'd just be cold and must want to even play him. So I haven't watched the Red Wolves enough, honestly, to know if he's being played the same as the Razorbacks. I know he's being played more, but he's getting taken out when he's cold, or is he staying in there when he's cold and trying to heat up? So that's my little talk with Arkansas State. They fall in this one, but we'll see what they do the rest of the season. Checking in on Little Rock men's basketball as well. They had a nice win Thursday over UT Martin, but a much different game Saturday. Defense was the issue looking at this game. They gave up 95 points to a Tennessee State team that is not amazing. 95-86, your final score in Nashville. Again, on the road, so this is a tough one. Tigers were a slight favorite over the Trojans, and the Trojans, they scored the first points of the game. They made the 3-pointer, started out the game well, and then after that they never trailed again. And so maybe it's a mental thing that they have to get past. But Beljean, their big man, I'll be honest, I didn't watch a ton of this game. He had 33 points in 35 minutes. So do the math, that's like a couple points a minute or a little less, whatever. 11 out of 12 from free throw, from the charity stripe, the free throw line, whatever. he must have played really good. I mean, he did play really good to have 33 points. And I've seen him play this year. He's a good player. To have 33 points is really impressive. So hopefully he can carry that momentum into some of the other conference games that they've got coming up. And to be honest, the Little Rock team has been a little disappointing this season. They were projected to win their conference, projected to be a March Madness team. And so that's one side of this, is they were supposed to be really good and they're kind of not. But another side is excuses, but good excuses, of some of the players who are their star players who haven't been playing because of injuries. A Creed Williamson, a KK Robinson, who doesn't look like he's going to be playing this season. A Jordan Jefferson, who's a really good guard. Him and KK Robinson could be an elite duo as guards for the Trojans. Jefferson hasn't played much. I think it's been a few weeks since the last time he played. Robinson isn't going to play, it doesn't look like. But these three are really good, but they haven't played in a while. They haven't played together. So that's my issue. That's my thing I have to say. The excuse, that is a warranted excuse for this Little Rock team. So we'll see what they do the rest of the season, but tough loss for them against Tennessee State. We'll move on from Little Rock to UCA. What a time it's been watching the Bears play this season. Lane Taylor, you've probably heard of him by now. If you watch my show, you probably follow sports to some degree, or you just stumbled upon it on YouTube or THV11+. Lane Taylor, let me tell you, Lane Taylor, the freshman out of Farmington, can play. This guy can play. He had 29 points in this game in their win, in their loss, I guess, or in their win. Yeah, in their win on Saturday. In their win on Saturday, 71-65 win. Lane Taylor can play. He can shoot from beyond the arc. He can drive. He can play defense, and he's only a freshman. He's probably the best freshman in their conference. I might put him top 25 in the country. And it's a UCA team that is not great this year, it doesn't seem like. Lane Taylor, and he gets a lot of the hype. Elliot Cato should get some hype too. The big man for the Bears that's been playing really good. 21 points in this game in their win. I also want to talk about Thursday's game. That's the one I covered a little bit more extensively. I was at the first half of that game and then watched the second half here at the station. They lost to Eastern Kentucky, but they forced double overtime, and EKU is a really good team. And so UCA has the potential to be one of those really good teams. They got the win in this one against a team that isn't great, but maybe they can carry this and get some momentum heading into the rest of the season. So UCA, they got the playmakers. They're just 5-10 on the year, just 5 wins. They played a really challenging non-conference schedule. Also, similar to Little Rock, they have some guys who've just been out with injuries or other reasons that I'm not aware of. They have some guys who are out. So if those guys can get going and start playing with them, then maybe there's more hope for UCA. And there is certainly hope after getting a win like this. So that's the men's basketball talk. Let's look at how UAPB fared over the weekend. Not great. The men fell to Alabama A&M, and the women also fell to the same team. 79-89, your final score in the men's game. In the women's game, 66-52. Both UAPB teams this season have not been good. The men's team only 3 wins on the year, and the women's team worse, 2 wins on the year for the Golden Lions. So we'll keep track of how they're doing. Let's move on now to the UCA Bears. We'll talk about women's basketball now for the final 3 games that we got before we move on to some NFL talk. For the women's side, the Sugar Bears did the opposite of the men. They opened up conference play on Thursday with a win over Jacksonville and then lost their game on Saturday, 68-60 Bellarmine. And, this is a game you say probably should have won. They had an 80% chance to win according to ESPN, ESPN's percentage that they give you when you look at it. They had an 80% plus chance to win this game heading into it. They led for most of the game, probably 99% of the game until the fourth quarter, and that was when they struggled. And UCA was a team that was picked second in their league, only behind Florida Gulf Coast, which is going to win the ASUN because they're always really good in women's basketball. But UCA was the second best team in the league, which is saying something because it's a decently good league with Florida Gulf Coast in it. Bellarmine, on the other hand, was one of the last teams picked in the preseason polls. And now they've had a decent start to the season. But this is a game when you just wanted UCA to win it. You thought this was a game you probably should have won. Kate Upshaw still played decent with 12 points leading the way, but it was a tough look for UCA to lose that one. We'll move on now to Little Rock, staying on the women's side. They take down Tennessee State, so a little more positive news, 67-63. They moved to 3-1 now on OVC in OVC play. And I talk about players on each of these teams that can play. Faith Lee for this Trojans team can really play. She had a 30-plus point game when I watched it a few weeks ago at the Jack. She played really good in this game. The past 2 games, the Thursday game and the Saturday game, she played every minute. No sitting, 40 minutes, which is really impressive. That shows the stamina. I couldn't do that. 26 points on Thursday, 23 points on Saturday. She's cementing herself as that go-to player for this Trojans team. And it seems like it's working. They won this game. They're off to a 3-1 start to the year. So they took care of business, exactly what they needed to do. Another team we'll move on to is Arkansas State. They also took care of business 76-73 over Georgia State. Again, talking about the players, Kiana Morgan coming off the bench. I talked about her in last week's show, and that was a win for the Red Wolves. And Kiana Morgan she kind of continues to be that weapon for this team. Even coming off the bench in the past 2 games, I don't know if that's a strategic thing. She's coming off the bench for a reason. I haven't focused in. I watched a ton of their games, but 16 points off the bench, leading the way. Also, shout out to Sizzlin Rose, who had 15 points. Those are good performances. That's what Arkansas State needs to try to get some wins, and that's exactly what they did. Well, that's some women's basketball talk. We'll move on to the NFL now. Check out what happened in a lot of yesterday's games. Commanders taking down the Cowboys, just fitting into a bad season for the Cowboys. And they lost the last play of the game, 23-19, your final score there, which I guess is probably better for their NFL draft order. So they'll get a better pick in the draft, I guess. Top right corner of your screen, Panthers take down Falcons 44-38. I think the Falcons are still in the playoffs, I believe, after that one, even after losing that. I could be wrong. I get them mixed up with the Texans sometimes. Texans, though, they did win. I know they are in the playoffs, 23-14 over the Titans. And good thing the Titans lost, because they will have the #1 pick in the draft. So if they want to get one of the Colorado kids, they want to get an offensive lineman. I don't know if they want to keep Will Levis, but if they don't, they got a pretty good options in the Colorado kids with Shedeur Sanders or Travis Hunter. Bottom right corner of your screen, Saints fall to the Bucks 27-19. The Bucks win over the Saints, and I believe they also qualify. I think they win the NFC South. Again, NFL, not my best. I got you with college basketball, y'all. NFL, still working on it. Bucks, though, get the win. That's the last week of the regular season. We got playoffs next week, which we will talk about then. Another thing to look ahead to for next week, Arkansas facing Ole Miss is the men's basketball team, I should specify. We'll see if they play, or we'll see if Arkansas is still ranked. Probably not after losing. I do want to go on the record and say I think Arkansas is a top 25 level team, but they probably won't be ranked because they just lost by 25 to the #1 team in the country. So they probably won't be ranked. Ole Miss will, because Ole Miss is coming off a win, I think against Georgia, I want to say. Arkansas currently has a 58% chance to win, according to ESPN. They need this one, and I think they are the better team in this one. So that's it. That's my show, Luttie's Look Back, episode 16. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all next week.